Okay, so today I'm going to be refuting the claim that the increase of processed foods is a significant cause of childhood obesity. And my opponent had three secondary claims, the first being processed foods in schools, the second being processed foods in fast food restaurants, and the third being that your body cannot properly metabolize processed foods. So going on to the first claim being processed foods in schools, she basically said that kids are forced and they're surrounded by the food that they have at school. And while I understand not all kids have the option to bring their lunch to school because they can't afford it, so some kids are actually, what they're given at school is the only thing that they have available for them for lunch. But my opponent also made a claim in her introduction, being that rising obesity numbers in kids can be attributed to passing down habits from parent to child. So with that in mind, parents don't have to negatively affect their children and their eating habits, they can also positively affect them. And in an article of USA Today News, Nancy Helmich stated the importance of parents informing their kids about the healthy options that are available at their schools. The first being to choose fruits and vegetables opposed to chips and cookies, to choose milk over juices and sodas, and to know what types of foods to avoid. So moving on, Nancy Helmich with the same US Today News, she also wrote an article about the government's plan for schools to start serving much healthier lunches. And some of the options and the requirements that the government has been imposing are requiring schools to serve larger portions of fruits and vegetables, for them to serve leafy greens and orange and green vegetables, for them to serve starchy vegetables and legumes, and also all grains offered must be whole wheat, milk must be low fat or fat-free, and foods must contain little to no trans fats. And this article was written last January, and in the article it stated that these requirements will be imposed in the following year. So since we are now in 2013, these requirements are already being implemented in our schools today. So kids are being given healthier options. There are also three different schools that have made healthy changes. The first being Hillsborough County Schools in Tampa will be serving new entrees that consist of a spicy black bean vegetarian wrap and sweet potato encrusted fish topped with pineapple salsa. Knox County Schools will offer whole grain biscuits, pizza made with whole grain crust, and a spring mix of vegetable salads with smoked turkey. And Wake County Schools have already started serving larger portions of fruits and vegetables and have added honeydew melon to their menu for their schools. So moving on to the second claim being processed foods in fast food restaurants. My opponent brought up the fact that fast food restaurants are on every corner and they're very convenient. I also wanted to bring up the point that grocery stores are available in almost all communities. And at grocery stores you can purchase your meals for up to a week or a month in advance. So I don't see anything more convenient than having the food at your house rather than having to go out every single night and buying your breakfast, lunch, and dinner by the day when you can have food available to you at your home. Also, she listed a couple of popular fast food restaurants and a list of some of their most unhealthy options, but according to Fitness Magazine, I wanted to give you a couple statistics on these same fast food restaurants that offer healthy options. The first being KFC. You can get one of their original drumsticks for 140 calories, one of their sides of mashed potatoes for 120, and coleslaw for 190 calories. So this is an entire meal for under 500 calories. And this is what you can get at KFC. And then at Taco Bell, you can get a grilled steak taco for 170 calories and original tostada for 200 calories. So both of these options are either 200 calories or less. So this is all going back to the choices that you're making yourself. It's not that these places aren't offering healthy options. It's if you decide to eat the bad food, you can't blame the restaurant for your obesity. That's you. If they have healthy options available to you and you're just not choosing those, you can't blame the restaurants. And the third claim was being that your body cannot properly metabolize processed foods. I just wanted to state that not all processed foods are heavily processed. Some processed foods can range anywhere from just bagged vegetables that are like pre-cut and then just sealed in bags. That would be a lightly processed, and then heavily processed would be more on the end of like a frozen dinner that you have to put in the microwave. And processed foods really do fall on both ends of the spectrum. So by saying that your body can't properly metabolize processed foods, if a processed food is just a pre-cut vegetable, then yes, your body can. And also, according to the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, Aaron's son said that milk and juices, sometimes fortified in calcium and vitamin D, can be healthier than just the juice by itself, and that breakfast cereal can have added fiber to it in the process of it being processed. And also that sometimes canned fruit is packaged in its own water and its own juice, and that is a really good healthy option opposed to if you don't have fresh food available to you. So in conclusion, not all processed foods are bad for you, and many schools and restaurants are now offering healthy options for the same convenient and cheap prices. Thank you.
All right, the main claim is labeled clearly. You did a good job signposting the secondary points. On the first point, I think that that's where you had your strongest information, suggesting that we have new standards that are being put into place. There's a lot of development on this particular point that addresses issues that the advocate brought up, and you did a good job explaining how your arguments counter the claims that the advocate presented there. I do think you could use a little bit more challenge on the advocate's evidence on some of these points. You're doing a pretty good job delivering the speech. Sometimes your eye contact's a little bit limited, but it sounds very good where you're presenting it. You labeled the second point very clearly. I did like the idea that grocery stores are just as ubiquitous as fast food places, and the notion that they could be just as convenient, I think, is a little bit of a press. I mean, you come up with some hypothetical examples that suggest that that's the case, and maybe. I thought that the argument about the healthy options of the fast food restaurants and the fact that it's the consumer that's making these choices, it's not the fast food companies that are imposing the options, is an interesting point. If the argument that the advocate presents suggested that there's a limit on what the choices are, and that's what contributes to the problem, rather than it's just our own stupidity that makes us overweight, that sort of thing, then I think that that's a good response. On the last argument concerning processed foods, you know, I think you might get a little bit of a press on this, the idea that there are light processed foods and heavy processed foods. I don't know how much of the advocate's argument depended on this particular argument. I did like the response that you had back, though, that did say some processed foods do have advantages to them, and I thought you did a pretty good job developing some information on those points. All right, thank you.